Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater SoundCheck. Today we are joined by Matt Hines, a product manager from Izotope. Matt,
hey,
great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Thanks for visiting us here at Sweetwater. And you have brought an impressive new plug-in to show us.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So what I'm showing off today is Izotope's Neutron. So Neutron is our newest product in the mixing space. As you said, it is a mixing plugin. I'm showing it here in Pro Tools. It works in pretty much any host.
Right.
But yeah, there are a few pretty special things. I think we were just looking at them.
Looking at how smart this plugin is. So
yes.
Why don't you give us a tour of what's happening here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to spend too much time actually focusing on these modules up here. Just to note that this mixing product has an equalizer. It has a multi-band Transient Shaper, a multi-band exciter, a multi-band compressor, and actually two multi-band compressors. There's a digital, there's a vintage. You'll notice everything's bypassed right now, and I actually have no settings going on. I actually want to show you the newest feature before I show anything else.
Okay.
Which is, Izotope are known for presets, right? All of our products have a lot of presets. Neutron has this new feature called Track Assistant, which actually can make a preset for you from scratch. And it's not just pulling it out of thin air, it's kind of listening to your audio, understanding different things about it, and then it will give you a pretty intelligent starting point. So let me just show you that real fast.
Okay.
I have it on my drum bus here, my stereo drum track. So what I'm going to do is hit play. You'll hear some drums. I'll hit Track Assistant, and you'll see what it does.
Got me spinning faster than tequila when I know I've had a bit too much. You're like the mix for a perfect margarita, and I'm never gonna give you up.
All right, there it is. Right off the bat, you can see, first of all, it tagged it correctly as drums. So we have some machine learning in this product which can identify with very high degrees of success if it's a vocal, a dialogue, a guitar, a bass, drums, or something percussive. It could be a shaker, a tambourine. And the reason that we do that kind of analysis is it informs everything else that happens next. So you can see I have an EQ curve. It didn't just make that EQ curve up. It places nodes on areas it thinks are important. It could be a fundamental frequency. If it's a vocal, I'll show you this in just a second, it might find some sibilance and duck it. Gives you a really great starting point. In this case, it sets the signal flow for drums. This is a recommended signal flow for drums. It's not the only one. You can certainly adjust it, as with any of these starting points. It gives me this harmonic exciter. It actually gave me 3 bands and dialed in. It looks like some tape distortion for me. And then I have 2 bands of vintage compression. It sets my compression settings for me with the thresholds and everything. And then this is a much more gentle digital compressor.
Okay.
And like with any of these settings, you can go and tweak everything to your heart's desire. But in a nutshell, within 4 to 6 seconds, it identified, hey, this is drums, and gave me a complete preset.
Right.
Now, if I ran this setting, again, just to remind you, this is what the EQ curve looks like. I've skipped ahead to the chorus here, and I'm actually going to go and find another Neutron plugin that's on my vocal track. Let's see what it does for my vocal.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm so shaking for you. And I hope your soul is shaking.
All right, tagged it as vocals. I have a very different EQ curve. This one is generally focused on some sibilant areas. I have a different signal flow, some different compression settings. I can blend between dry and wet and all of that more advanced stuff if you want to get into it. But it's pretty exciting. We hope anyone that's starting out on a mix, you could just put Neutron across a bunch of tracks and say, all right, give me a starting point for my vocal. Give me a starting point maybe for my synth or my kick drum, whatever it is that I need. That's really up to you. And what I like about it too is if I solo the voice, maybe just turn everything else off. We'll listen to just the EQ.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody.
That harshness is why it put a node there.
Okay.
So you can kind of retroactively go back and say, well, why did it do this? And then actually listen to where this plugin suggested you start.
Right.
And kind of take that and move on with it. And it's pretty exciting. If I go back to my Maybe I'll go to my snare drum, for instance. We didn't do anything on the snare drum yet. And just show you, hey, you can run Track Assistant on pretty much anything. Not only that, but there's a few different types of Track Assistant. I don't know about your ears, but you may be a little more subtle oriented, or maybe your taste is a bit more aggressive. It depends, you know.
Sure.
If you choose aggressive, what you're more likely to get is more nodes, more cuts, more boosts, more bands of compression, heavier compression. Subtle, the inverse. So I'll just put it on medium and I'll do something on the snare.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm so shaking for you. And I hope your soul is shaking too.
You know, I can start dialing back whatever I want, and here's the curve it gave me on my snare. And you can see, in some ways, it's a similar complementary shape to the shape I got on my drum bus.
Right.
But these nodes are in different places. And the other thing you can do as well is, okay, Track Assistant, big new feature, and it actually suggests aesthetically, here's a place to start.
Right.
Now let's say you don't want that, but you still want to be told, hey, maybe where should I start? I can use the individual learn buttons in each module. So here, for instance, I have a bunch of EQ nodes. If I hit play, maybe I'll do it to my overall drums. You know, reset this curve, and you can actually see it was pretty different to what it did on the snare drum.
Sure.
I'm going to hit play, and then I'm just going to hit learn here.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you.
You see how the nodes are kind of jumping around?
That nobody can do.
That's why it put a node there. It's up to me whether I want to cut it or
Want to use
boost
it or
it.
not? Sure.
I'm going to use it. That's why I put another node there. I also want to use that. Really, we're not trying to mix for you. We're just trying to give you a suite of mixing tools
Right.
and then kind of help guide you to the end result, which really is a better balanced mix. You know, this is doing a change in isolation on this track, but we also have another feature which actually starts to take other tracks into account. You know, one of the biggest problems I know I struggle with, and I think probably many people when they're mixing struggle with, is, you know, how do I get my kick to fit with my bass, or my lead
Right.
guitar with my lead vocals? And really the art of mixing, the fun of mixing is that process of making everything fit together, sit together, make that song as good as it possibly could be. It doesn't mean it's not challenging at times. And in fact, one of the reasons I have this particular mix, I'm just going to play through the chorus and, you know, focus in on like the kick and the bass and just try and listen to the relationship between one and the other.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm so shaking for you.
So I think this is a good example of where, yeah, they're both there. There's not a whole lot of definition, you know. I hear the bass, it kind of covers up the kick a little bit.
Right.
And actually, if I just play around with increasing the kick or decreasing the bass,
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing.
you know, that was only 3 dB of a cut, and it's just too much. My mix balance is off now. So this is a phenomenon I think users face every day. We call it masking. I know
Right.
you go on the forums and the glossaries, you'll see it, you'll read about it. When one audio source is conflicting with another, you can actually get what's called loudness loss, which is where certain frequencies at a certain energy level will just start to cancel each other out almost. You know, perceptually, the way we hear things means we're more sensitive in certain areas of the frequency spectrum. That plays into it as well.
Right.
It's a whole lot of talking, but it's actually an incredibly intuitive and a pretty exciting new way of looking at audio. It's what we call the masking meter.
Okay.
So, in a nutshell, I have this particular Neutron is on my kick drum track. You can see here I have a Neutron on this track, which is my bass bus down here.
Okay.
So in my kick, I have a button called masking. It enables the masking meter. I can actually cycle through any Neutron that's in my mix. In this case, I have 6 Neutrons. You might have 16, you might have 20. You can label them. If you have a mix and you just want to press play and then cycle through each other instrument to see what's conflicting and what isn't conflicting, you can. I happen to know it's bass, so I'm going to go right there. I'm just going to hit play, and what you'll notice is this little heat map will start to direct my attention to certain areas of the frequency spectrum, where the bass is covering up the kick.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody
This.
can do. Yeah,
Definitely there.
so
Yeah.
shaking for you.
And you can see how it changes over time, which makes sense. You might notice some differences in a verse or a chorus, or if you hit a pedal and on your boost goes, or your fuzz, something like that. But it's sort of a heat map that gives you an indication, hey, maybe go look here, do something here.
Right.
So I could certainly, in my kick EQ here, try some boosting. So let's try that first.
'Cause I'm so
And I'll
shaking for
boost here because I'm being told there's a problem here.
nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm
Boost here.
shaking for you.
One thing I won't do is boost around 100 hertz, like someone might try. That makes sense for a kick drum, right?
Right.
Well, no, the masking meter is saying there's not really a problem there. So I'm just going to leave that be for now. I might put in like another little boost on this fundamental here.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody can.
Okay, so I'm starting to dial in a corrective little bump to the kick. I think most people would say, well, what are you going to do about the bass? I think that's a fair question. With a lot of conventional mixing tools, you might go to the bass guitar. This is a curve I had dialed in previously. Let's say I wanted to do something different. I'm actually going to start from scratch. Dial in an EQ curve, maybe try some side chain compression. There's a whole bunch of different techniques to make tracks fit together.
Right.
Well, check it out. This little window down here that says bass guitar and shows me my bass guitar EQ, that's not just a little window, it's a little control surface. So you can see, as I make changes in my bass guitar window, it's actually sending those changes over to my bass EQ. So, in a nutshell, show me where my bass is covering my kick. It's covering it here. Okay, I might boost my kick there and do the absolute inverse in my bass guitar to try and carve out the right space. There's a neat little inverse link feature, which is where anything I do is reflected as the exact opposite in the spectrum. What's nice about that is I don't need to boost as much. I don't need to boost by 3 dB. I
Right.
can boost by 1.5 dB and then cut in the right place on the other track by 1.5. So you can kind of go through and do things like that. And of course, the key is to listen.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you. There ain't nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm so.
And I'll play it one more time, and what I'll do is I'll go back and forth between bypassed and unbypassed. I think that's the real test. Everyone should listen. The meter is helpful to guide you there,
Right.
but at the end of the day, as long as it sounds good, it is good. So this just bypasses both EQs with one button. It's kind of neat.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you.
Hard to hear the kick, I would say.
Nothing that nobody can do. Yeah, I'm so shaking for.
And there's more definition there.
Right.
And, granted, I would probably then go in and you can see some of these changes are a little extreme. I might dial them back. But the other thing I find interesting about the masking meter is this is not an EQ curve I would ever have thought to try on a kick drum. And maybe this is something I might try on a bass. But this is the key to separating those two things. Of course, I can go and do more aesthetic changes if I want. Maybe my kick to do something like this, just to keep it low and boomy without too much high end. Or if I like a little bit of added bite in my bass, I can do it with EQ. I could go do it with some, harmonic excitement. There are a whole bunch of different conventional mixing techniques that Neutron absolutely supports, but I think what's really exciting is just using A, the track assistant to kind of get you started, up and running, and then B, the masking meter to actually show you, hey, these are where things are conflicting.
Right.
And it's really fascinating, actually, just to, pull up my lead vocal, for instance, to kind of run through different tracks and see what is and isn't a problem.
'Cause I'm so shaking for you.
So there, in a few seconds, I just pulled up the SM57 that was on my guitar cab, and I would have guessed, it's a 57. It's probably more in the high end, a little harsh. But apparently, where I'm getting that loudness loss and trying to get my vocals and my guitar to sit together is more around definitely this sort of 400 hertz range, and then a little bit around 1,000 hertz.
Right.
So then I would go in and, for more advanced control, by the way, you can go into the advanced EQ mode, and this is where we get super tweaky. You know, you can do stuff like, that was my kick drum, this is my bass guitar. I can actually put some of these nodes in dynamic EQ mode. And that means they're not just always cutting, they're only going to cut when they're triggered to do so. So you can see how the node is now moving. So right now they're only cutting when the bass triggers them to cut, and you can take it one step further and say, you know what, I want all my tracks to sit together, right? That's what masking meter is doing for me and helping me get to. So you could actually tell these nodes, in this case I'm saying, hey, do your dynamic EQ based on an external sidechain signal, which just happens to be my kick drum. And now this is something you do have to set up in the host. This doesn't set up for you.
Okay.
See, now every time the kick hits, so does that EQ. So it's, you know, it's pretty fun. It's especially fascinating to just put it on a whole bunch of different tracks. We recommend at least put it on all the major buses, you know, the drums, the vocals, the backing vocals, the guitars, the synths,
Right.
sound effects, and certainly things like the Transient Shaper, the multi-band Transient Shaper, and a bunch of the other tools. You can go and dive in and shape and manipulate everything like you would as you would mix, but kind of use that masking meter as just a reference point,
Right.
and the track assistant as a jumping off point.
Right.
It's pretty fun.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I see it as being super valuable as a learning tool as well. Just in listening to your tracks and seeing where those problems are, that can help you when you're tracking.
Yeah.
Because you can recognize when you're going to be creating problems later in a mix or whatever. So I see this as a valuable tool at several different points in the whole process.
Especially since you raised tracking, I mean, that's a great point. We have a zero latency button. We actually put it on the main interface. It's pretty obvious. We wanted to make it obvious so that users could click it.
Right.
Now, if I turn it on, it means zero latency. So if you are tracking, you can track through Neutron, and you could be using the masking meter or some of the intelligent analysis on a live performance as you're tracking, because it's zero latency compatible. So you're not going to have that delay back in the headphones, which nobody wants.
Sure.
So it's kind of fun that way too.
Right. Very impressive. I'm very excited to get a chance to put this to work.
I'm glad you're excited. It's been a pleasure to work with the team on building this thing. So I think it's pretty unique. We're excited to get it out there.
Right, right. Thanks for coming in and giving us a complete demo of this. This is, like I say, really exciting. I think this is something you're definitely going to want to check out. Matt, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Always great to see you.
You too.
And thank you for joining me for Sweetwater SoundCheck. I'm Mitch Gallagher.